And we're live.
Welcome to the Library Lived In. I'm Anise, and this is my co-host Lisa. Woo! And we read books and talk about them. So this time we read Moby Dick. And so this is going to probably be a more random discussion than usual, just because of the way this book is.
Random.
So everybody knows what Moby Dick is because it's a classic of American literature for a lot of reasons. So let's just dive in. So I gave it 4 stars, even though it took me it feels like I've been reading this book forever. I think this is the first book I finished this year, which is odd for me.
Really?
Taken this long, yeah. So it's a very long book. What is it, like 700 and something pages?
No, like 150 chapters.
135 chapters.
35, yeah.
Some of them are very short. Some of them are very long.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I'm giving it 4 stars, which if you had asked me when I was in the middle of the book, I probably would have said 2 or 3. But then when I pushed through and when I got to the end, I liked it enough that I think I would read it again, but I would do some things differently to make it a better stars for me. How many stars do you give it, Lisa?
Okay, well, I thought I made halfway, but I didn't. I probably made it like a quarter to a third of the way. And I think probably in another time of my life, I would push through and I would read it all the way. The language is beautiful. The writing is beautiful. So on that point alone, I could probably give it 4. I just was really struggling at this point. If I had to just go from the fact that I was struggling, I might have to put it at a 3, but I really think the language is beautiful. The sentences, you could just get lost in the language. So probably have to go higher. So, but what would you do different? What would you do to make it?
So I think part of what made it hard for me was going back and forth between reading the ebook version and listening to the version from the Moby Dick Big Read site where they had a different narrator chapter, which seemed like a good idea at first. When I was trying to listen to the entire story, there were definitely readers I liked better than others. And so then when I didn't like it, I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just one reader, and I think that would help.
Like one really solid, great reader. Because I was trying to listen to it all, and I was using that because I also thought that was just a really cool idea. And maybe it's really awesome if you already know and love the book. But if you've never read it before, I just don't know that that's the best, because you get in kind of a rhythm with your reader and then it switches.
Right.
So it's kind of tough, I think, to follow that. So
yeah. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I would change. Also, I would maybe not be as annoyed at all the little interrupting chapters about the whole history of whaling. Because the story portions were so good, and the characters were all really vivid and interesting, and the language is beautiful, like you said. And then all of a sudden he just goes off ever about whale skeletons and every kind of whale that ever existed, and what are the differences between all their skeletons and stuff like that, which is fine. But it made it harder to stick it out. for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it just kind of goes on and on and on some places. Although I didn't get as far as you did, so I think I had less of that. Yeah. But he does a little bit, like right at the beginning, and you're like, what are you going on about? Why are you just...
For me was so the narrator of the book, Ishmael, is supposed to be like this newbie to whale hunting, and then all of a sudden he's just like knows everything about whaling and tells you about it forever, which was a little odd to me. And so I have been reading some reviews and essays on Moby Dick, and one of them had a quote that I liked. They were saying that they called those, let's see, they said there are not only chapters, but sections of the book devoted to regurgitating Melville's research, which it really felt that way. Like he did all this research, he wasn't going to let it go to waste, and so he put it all in his book.
That's funny. Maybe that was. I don't know. It didn't maybe strike me like so odd in terms of the character knowing too much, because it's written in past tense. So I kind of took it more like, well, he was a newbie at that moment in the book, but if he's looking at it reflectively, well, this is what he's learned, and he's like, I don't know, looking at it backwards. So that didn't strike me so odd. But yes, I could totally see it as an author shoving too much in. Like, I just have to share it all with you. Which, when you're excited about something or you don't want it to go away, you do that kind of thing, but it definitely doesn't go to the best. I don't know. I did read something that said that part of the reason for that, the thought behind part of why Melville wrote all that, was to kind of go to the point that Ishmael knows all of these things, and he wants to set himself up as kind of this expert. You should believe me, right? I know all of this stuff, so I'm this expert in this area. But it also builds into the theme that you can't know everything. You can't predict everything. Look at his story. You can't, So even though he thinks he knows all of this stuff, he just couldn't. There's still that fate aspect, or there's still that destiny aspect. So,
right.
I think I like your theory better. I think.
Well, because, like, it's almost unbelievable what happens, and so him saying like, this is when something like this happened, and like giving all these details, a little more convincing, I think. So out of the whole story, I definitely liked the beginning and the ending the best. So if you just like skipped over all of those cetological chapters and just had the story portions, it would be like super amazing.
Which brings about an interesting point, because on principle alone, I tend to avoid adaptations of books, but maybe this would be, I don't know, an argument for that sort of thing.
I don't know. We should look. It might be worth it.
I don't know. It's hard to say, but because, like I said, on principle alone, because it's not the original author, and I always feel like, well, what should leave it how the author had it. Right. But maybe some things, like I started reading. I'm gonna just draw a complete blank on a name at the moment, but The Princess Bride, the filmmaker that did The Princess Bride. What's his name?
I don't know.
I'm drawing a blank. He wrote an edited version of the book. Morgenstern did the original book, and he in the introduction, I haven't finished it yet, but in the introduction of the rewrite of the adaptation, he says, he remembers his grandpa coming and reading him the story. And when he goes back as an adult and he looks at it, he's like, it wasn't as exciting. And there's all this boring kind of crap in between. And he realized his grandpa just skimmed over all that stuff. And so he, like, the rewrite or the adaptation is like only the good bits, you know, it's like what we watch in the movie. It's the good bits. And so it kind of made me, you know, that's kind of what that makes me think of now, is like somebody going through and, well, we're just going to catch the good bits, you know? So.
Yeah. Totally work with this book because the good parts are so good.
Yeah.
Like I found myself highlighting things, and like whenever I was listening to the audio, I was like, oh man, I have to go back and highlight that because that was amazing. And I don't think I remember to do. But one of the things I read in one of the reviews said, somewhere along the way, you'll start to admire Melville's sheer stamina as an author and your own as a reader. Which is probably part of the point of this book and why everybody reads it or they want to say that they've read it. Is just because it's exhausting to get through. And when you're done, it feels like you've accomplished something.
Yeah. You get that 26.2 sticker on the back of your car that says you made the marathon.
Right. So some of the other things I wrote down, ways that people have described this book are with awe and dread. They've said it's unsummarizable. It may be the most shapeless, great novel ever written.
Shapeless? That's funny.
Yeah, so let's talk about characters a little bit. So the narrator is Ishmael, and he is a sailor. He sailed before, but this is his first time ever being on a whaler. And he recounts what happens on this voyage. He becomes friends with a cannibal named Queequeg. And I really enjoyed all of the beginning chapters when they were getting to know each other.
Yes. Well, it's very funny. It's very, like, comical because they can't really communicate with each other.
Uh-huh.
But they're thrown into, I mean, same room, same bed, same, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny, that kind of intimacy with, I don't know, without the ability to communicate. It's really funny.
Uh-huh. And so Queequeg signs on to sail on the Pequod also. And then we have Captain Ahab, who everybody knows is hunting for Ahab's leg. And then we have Starbuck and Stab, who are the first and second mates on the ship. And kind of opposites, and it mentions it a couple of times in the books that they're person opposite. And then there are a few native harpooneers that are mentioned from time to time. Dagu and Tashtego and some others that come up from time to time. And then there's Pip, the cabin boy. And those are basically all the main characters. And so what did you think of the characters? Were there any that you liked more than others?
Well, a couple of them I didn't really get to know. Like the names, I guess I would have said like I met them, but I didn't really get far enough to really tell their different personalities or what really was going on with them to sort them really separately out. I think it's funny to compare, I don't know, like there's all the hype at the beginning about, oh, Ahab, you don't really know about him yet. Like they talk about how great he is, but then, you know, like a lot of, like the people that sign them up, that work for the company that sign them up, are talking about like how great of a captain he is. But at the same time, there's kind of this, oh, you don't really know. Like there's this thing, oh, he's ill, but you know, like, So you kind of have this sort of foreshadowing that things are not quite right, to where that like actually comes into play. I don't know. I think it's funny. Like why would you sign up to have somebody in charge of your life when there's all this kind of, I don't know, maybe you don't recognize that all these people are telling you this is not a good thing. I don't know, easier in literature than real life. But I just have a hard time to say, yes, I'm just going to join up and go let somebody be in charge of my life who might be crazy and all these people are talking about. Yeah. I thought those two were really weird. The two, which I don't remember their names, but
I don't remember their names either, but I know who you're talking about.
It's so weird how like they're signing everybody up. It's not, you don't meet the first mate and the second mate at the beginning. You don't meet everybody else. I really loved Queequeg. Really loved Queequeg. He's probably one of my favorites. And I think you get a good, I love just kind of like the details of the personalities, and you get kind of just a good painting of the interaction between everybody. I think one of the appeals to the book is that it's kind of part history as well. Like there's so much, like there's a lot of it that's based, we didn't talk about that yet, but like that's based in reality, both because of the author's actual life experiences in the industry, as well as the experience with the Essex, the ship, the Essex. But so there's a lot of like where you sit, where you feel like you're reading it and you feel like you're sitting in the room with these people, right? So you're getting very, I don't know, very detailed character descriptions. So even the innkeeper at the beginning is kind of like a really intriguing character, even though he's such a small part.
Right.
You know, I found him like really fascinating. What would it be like to walk into a place like that and be like, well, this is what you got, you know? So yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
Something that I was thinking, especially at the beginning, like when I was reading it, I was like, wow, this is like a manly book. Like all the descriptions, like just the atmosphere, I was like, wow. It was very intense, but I liked it. And then once you get on the ship, like your cast of characters is basically the same, except for when they come across another ship, which they do from time to time. It never goes very well. I also liked Queequeg a lot. He seemed to be kind of portrayed as like the noble savage. Like even though he does these things that wouldn't be acceptable or normal to us, like you could tell that he does have morals and he does try to do the right thing. And so I really liked him. I liked Starbuck, but I felt really bad for him like the whole time. Because he knows the whole time that this is a bad idea and it's going to end badly, and he keeps trying to warn everybody and nobody will listen to him. And he can't get away, and there's a scene where Ahab like is going to shoot him if he threatens mutiny, but he doesn't. And then later Ahab is asleep and Starbuck has the gun and he's like, I shot him now, we could save everybody on this ship, and he doesn't do it. And it's just so rough. Because he knows what's coming, and he won't rebel and save himself. And I thought Ahab was really interesting as a character. Because he's always described as being like a maniac, like he's obsessed with this and he's not gonna stop thinking about it, and he thinks that it's just part of who he is and that it can't be changed and he can't let it go, and it doesn't matter what happens, it doesn't doesn't matter that he's leaving his wife and child behind. And it just gets worse and worse until the very end, and he knows what's going to happen, and he knows that it's bad. And there are a couple of moments where maybe he realized that he can stop, and then he's like, no, I can't. This is Ahab, and that's that.
It's so sexy.
It really is. And I found something out about, so when this book was originally published in England, it got a lot of really bad reviews because it did not have the epilogue. When it was published in America, it had an epilogue. And so with the epilogue completely changes the ending, by the way. So if you're going to keep reading it, I won't say it, but if you're not going to, I'll let it be.
Tell me, because if I finish it, it's going to be like 10 years from now.
Okay. So at the end of the book, everybody, like the ship sinks, all of the little whale boats sink, everybody is gone. Then Ishmael is on a coffin that was turned into like a float thing, like a life preserver. Ishmael is on that, and so he's the only survivor. But without the epilogue, everything just sank, and then that's where it ends. And so everyone in England was like, this is a terrible story. Like, everybody just died, even though they didn't. Ishmael was alive, and so that's how he was the narrator. So anyway, I thought that was really interesting. It seems like something kind of important, and it should have just like been part of the final chapter instead of an epilogue.
Probably. I had read that the version in England was highly edited to, what is it? What did I read? It was like to guards against, or to protect their sensitivities or something like that was how it was written, you know, like, no, it wasn't acceptable.
Yeah.
So I wondered, I don't know, this is not going to happen, but I wondered how, you know, what it would be to take the British version and the American first version and compare side by side and see what really was taken out would be.
Yeah.
Be interesting. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I always understand the way that prologues and epilogues are used by authors. Like, sometimes I think they're used well. Sometimes I'm like, I don't get why you did that.
It makes sense if there's like a big gap of time in between or something. But there was like no time in between this one. It was just like, oh yeah, everyone's confused. He's actually alive. Anyway, I think I noticed, like, I already knew, like, going into it, I already knew that it was a sad story, like it was a tragedy and things were not going to turn out well. And you kind of get that foreboding feeling like throughout the whole story, like over and over again. They're like signs that things aren't going right, and they just keep progressing and keep getting worse. And even sometimes there are signs and someone is like, oh, look, it's a sign that we can stop now, that things will turn out well if we do leave. And then Ahab twists it into something else, and he's like, no, it's a sign that this is the right thing to do. And it's just interesting because I think interpreting things like that are really individual. It was interesting seeing the different characters taking them in different ways to mean different things.
Yeah. I think that happens in real life too. I think that's a good test of an author too, is if how well their characters are written by how they treat the same situation. You know, how true are they to their character's voice? So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bummed I didn't finish. It sounds interesting.
It's okay. You can do it. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Just read like a page or two a day. Just
Forever.
it'll happen.
I have like the teeniest, tiniest bit of Anna Karenina to finish too, because but really I made it pretty far on that one. It's just the tiniest little bit left. It's another ginormous.
So I have some of the quotes that I highlighted that I especially liked.
Okay.
Oh, so you saw the opera version. There's an opera version of Moby Dick
Really?
that they did here in Utah in January. And so I went and saw that before I started. Oh, no, I started reading before, only barely before.
And?
But I loved the opera. It was so good. And I didn't realize at the time, but now that I finished the book, they took a lot of the passages from the book and put them like verbatim almost into the opera and like set it to music, and the set was amazing. And they rearranged a few things, but it worked in that format. And I think overall you still got the same sense, like the essence of the book was there, except you can do it in 3 hours.
Only 3 hours.
And the best part of the opera was when Ahab is on the deck and he's just talking to himself. And there's a chapter that they took, it was chapter 37 called Sunset. And so I'll read part of it. What chapter did you get to?
I don't remember. I have to look it up. I have to go to the big read and pull it up. I'll look.
Something else that sort of confused me sometimes was that some of the chapters open up with like, it sounds like something you would read in a play, like a stage setting, which I thought was really interesting. So anyway, chapter 37, Sunset. The cabin by the stern windows, Ahab sitting alone and gazing out. I leave a white and turbid wake, pale waters, paler cheeks where'er I sail. The envious billows sidelong swell to whelm my track, let them, but first I pass. Yonder by ever-brimming goblet's rim, the warm waves flush like wine. The gold brow plumbs the blue. The diver's sun, slow-dived from noon, goes down. My soul mounts up, she wearies with her endless hill. Is then the crown too heavy that I wear, this iron crown of Lombardy? Yet is it bright with many a gem. I the wearer see not its far flashings, but darkly feel that I wear that dazzlingly confounds. 'Tis iron, that I know, not gold. But anyway, he goes, but it's just really beautiful. And when they set it to the music and then they had like the lighting and the set and everything, it's just so awesome.
That is awesome. That would be cool. It's amazing to me. Like, I don't know. I have not been to the opera. But there's kind of this stereotype or whatever, like it's going to be old Italian, right? And that's where it's coming from. And so that's kind of what you would expect. And so when they say, let's take 19th century American literature and put it in, you think, wait, what? But it's amazing to me when artists do that. When artists say, let's take this little piece over here of literature or music or art and let's mix it with this over here that we don't, you might not think go together, or don't, haven't gone together in the past, and say, let's put that and then create new amazing things. So.
Right. And what was this one is that it was so different. It was in English, and because of the story the way it is, that there aren't any female characters in it. It's an opera of men.
Yeah.
And so usually in opera you have the 4 different parts, but in this one the only female in the entire cast was Pip. And so like during the songs where they were all singing, just like the power of her voice, like there's like 30 men singing here, like belting it out as loud as they can. Her voice still comes up over top of everything.
Oh, wow.
And it was really, really great. I highly recommend it.
Next time I'm in Utah and they're doing it. That is really cool. It's like you get to do so many neat things there. There's a lot of really cool arts there. Someday. It looks like I made it to about chapter 36. Right in there. 36.
Okay, read chapter 37, please.
Okay. I don't think I read 30. Like it's right in with, yeah. I don't think I actually read 37. I'm sorry. I failed.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's kind of the point of this book, you know, because Ahab fails in his quest.
To be a bigger failure. So I just have to ask you, there was this thing that I ran across that was talking about the, I don't know, symbols, but it was talking about the whale being the white whale. And I thought like, oh, because I always did wonder, I don't know, you don't think of whales being white, you think of them being gray or, anyways, you don't think about whales being white. And it was actually pointing that out as a symbol. And did you, I don't know, did you notice anything about that? Did you have?
I did. That was actually one of my favorite chapters. That was the chapter when I heard it, I was like, wow, like this is so good. Chapter 42, the whiteness of the whale.
Okay.
And part of it was probably because the reader on the Big Read site was amazing for this chapter. And so he goes off like for a long time, except it really, really works in this chapter. And he talks about how a lot of times we think of white things as being more beautiful than they would otherwise be. But then he goes off and explains like how it can be terrifying. And anyway, I probably can't pick just like one little piece to read, but if you read that chapter, really good. I really, really liked it.
Now I'm committed. I'm gonna have to go finish this book.
Well, you should you read the good chapters, and if a chapter is like too much, just skim. I skimmed. I had to skim a couple of chapters myself.
Okay, I'll just keep it on my phone, and I'll just hang on to it and work on it slowly. And someday I'll be like, guess what I did today? I'm just gonna text out.
Oh, well, guess what? I realized this morning when I changed it to finished on Goodreads, it was my 500th Goodreads book.
Wow! Congratulations!
Thanks.
Look at you. That's pretty awesome. I don't know where I'm at on there. I should go look. But what a good feeling.
Yeah, it is.
Well-read chick.
Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah. I think there's so much to it. I probably just need to finish it. And the language, like I was really amazed. I think it was one of those early on scenes where where he's in the inn and he has been told like, here's your bunkmate, and he ends up in the room with Queequeg and he's kind of freaking out about the whole situation. That I was I was sitting in the house by myself, and I realized I was laughing out loud at this book. And then I stopped and I was like, wow. So this is definitely not the experience I expected. Like it's not very often, I don't know, that time period of book, that's the reaction you have. It's more kind of a pondering I don't know. But I was just laughing so hard because the whole thing was so funny. And then there were other points where, you know, I would be listening to part of it and I would think, like, I need to back that up and listen to that again because it's just so beautifully written. And you think, oh, I wish I could speak like that, or I could write a sentence like that because it was just so lovely. I think language is not quite like that anymore. It's so beautiful. Maybe I should just listen to things like that all the time and then it will come out like that. So
that would be so great. So what I read when I was reading about Herman Melville, it was interesting to see how much real life experience he had with things like this. But also he had written some books before Moby Dick. But Moby Dick is his masterpiece because in between his other books and this one, he started reading Shakespeare.
No way.
Yes. And this was the book he wrote after he started reading Shakespeare. And that's why it's so great.
Isn't it funny? And he didn't, like his first two books are the ones that were sort of more popular in his lifetime. After this, he kind of fell off the literary scene for a while. And he never knew that it was good.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. More Shakespeare for everyone. And he didn't even have Ben Crystal to help him out.
I know. And so when I was reading, I think it was when I was reading on Wikipedia, I was talking about part of the reason why this is a hard book to get through is because he switches between different styles. And like sometimes he's just like giving you a lot of information. Sometimes it's like this beautiful descriptive language. And sometimes like when Ahab is speaking, it's like Shakespearean almost. And he did make up a lot of his words and use words in ways they weren't usually used.
Oh, I love it. I didn't run across that. That is awesome.
I'll have to find some links and put them on Goodreads. I already put one on there earlier. I found an illustration it's an illustration, like a map of the Pequod's voyage.
Oh, cool.
Which was good to have a visual on because I didn't really, like, I mean, it said they were in the Pacific. I was like, okay, but I wasn't able to visualize if I could, and it was really helpful.
That's awesome. I'll have to go look at the map. I did post biography of Herman Melville, was fascinating. He was just not kind of, I don't know, what's the word? I don't know, maybe not so obedient as Ishmael as his narrator, realizing that he was part of a mutiny on one of his ships and he
when I read that, I was like, well, then why couldn't Starbuck just like mutiny? Why did he have to just be obedient to his captain and just die?
Yeah. Well, maybe he was putting it more as what he saw versus like how he really felt. But I mean, he really was a bit more of a, I don't know, wild guy than he, you know. And the fact that he lived with some cannibal tribe in Hawaii for some, you know, for a year or something before finding his way back. He's gotta have like an interesting life. So, and that brings me back to like, why would you sign on? Why would you say, I'm just gonna, I don't know. Like I love the ocean, but I cannot imagine just that time of life where you just said, I'm going to go be a sailor. I don't know how to swim. I don't know anything about the ocean. I don't know anything about ships, but I'm just going to go just try my luck. And the things were that rough, or, I mean, and his family was really poor. I think that's what pushed him to it, you know, just to try to find some way to survive. But it's just hard for me to wrap my head around like that. you would do that on purpose.
Yeah, I wonder if he was thinking about that, because there's part of the book where Ahab, towards the end, Ahab is talking and he's like, I've been on the sea for the past 40 years. Like, how did that happen? Like, I've been eating salted and dried food for 40 years. I could have just like lived on land and been able to have fresh fruit anytime I wanted. Like, why did I choose this? And then that's when he starts talking about like this is just who I am, and I can't change it. And it's really interesting to think about.
Kind of sad.
It is sad.
It's sad. Yeah, I guess it's this pause, right? You know, you stop and think where my life choices pointing me.
So I think that's about all that I have. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover?
No, I think that's probably all. Like, I don't have a ton else, and we covered the few things that I had that were thoughtful. So no, I guess we'll just introduce the next book.
Okay, you can do that because you're picking it.
I know. So I actually brought my copy to, right there. Sorry.
I'm excited.
And I'm just gonna read the back of it. So this is Garth Nix, who we loved so much that we read the entire series on here already, or his other series. This one is the Keys to the Kingdom series, and it's the first book, which is Mr. Monday, which when I looked at it before, I didn't get the Arthur thing that you pointed out, that it's Arthurian legend thing. But Arthur Penhaglion is supposed to be a hero. I don't know how I missed my go. He is in fact supposed to die an earthly death, but then he is saved by a key shaped like the miniature hand of a clock. Arthur is safe, but his world is not. Along with the key comes a plague brought by bizarre creatures from another realm. A stranger named Mr. Monday, his avenging messengers with blood-stained wings, and an army of dog-faced fetchers will stop at nothing to get the key back, even if it means destroying Arthur and everything around him. Desperate, Arthur ventures into a mysterious house, a house that only he can see. It is in this house that Arthur must unravel the secrets of the key and discover his true fate. So that is what we're venturing into. And it's much shorter than Sabriel or any of them.
Until we decide we have to read all of them.
I know. Well, and that tends to happen. And I haven't looked up how many of them are, but
I'm pretty sure there's 7.
I was hoping there were just like 4 or 5.
No, because there's Mr. Monday, and then there's whatever Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh, really? Of course there are. So there's probably 7. But why should I complain? Because if they're good books, then you're going to want to spend money on them. So that's okay. Yeah. About 7 of these is probably about 3 or 4 of the series, right? Totally doable. And it looks fascinating. And I'm super excited. And I got it at the library for 50 cents, which is even a better deal for. So anyway, so that's what we're going to read next time. Super excited.
Awesome.
So, and maybe if we get carried away, we'll find the other ones.
That will probably happen. So stay tuned.
All right.
Thanks for chatting, and we will do it again soon.
All right. Sounds good.